Hello, this is NCC-171D Freddie Balkan. It was released today that the European Union and Russia are planning a collaborative mission to go to the moon today. So I'm going to be making a video about that and how the mission is part of a collective of missions that's supposed to be preparing to go and make some sort of permanent settlement or base on the moon. Wrong button, sorry. Okay. So, the mission, as I already said in the previous slide, is the Luna 27 mission. It's a mission that will be conducted by Probe in 5 years. And it will be a mission where they're going to send a probe, and it's going to land on the South Pole of the moon, which is special. Like, the reason they want to land on the South Pole is primarily because they did a mission, or I'm not sure if it was them, I think it might have been NASA, actually. There was a mission conducted by some space agency, at least, several years ago. I vaguely remember this, where they somehow figured out that, in parts of the moon, such as the South Pole, where there's, like, some sort of shading or something, water's being frozen, and they did something to detect the water. So they think that there might be lots of water on the moon frozen in these areas near the South Pole and other places. So they're sending the probe to the South Pole, A, because they want to see if it's frozen, or not if it's frozen, I'm sorry, to see if there's water and other, I guess, minerals there, to know if they can use that for some sort of moon base in the future. And, what else did I say? Oh, and also it's unexplored in that I believe all the missions, the Apollo missions and other missions to the moon, I'm not sure what other ones there have been, have not been to, I think it was the dark side of the moon. So it's the first mission to anywhere that we can't see from Earth, I believe. Sorry, I just read this article. So, okay, and then the last thing was that the Luna 27 mission is a continuation of some of the Soviet missions that were then postponed by the Soviet Union, and they're being taken up by the Russian government in collaboration with the EU. So, the idea of this mission is that it would be the first in line of several that would go to the South Pole of the moon and other dark shaded regions, I believe, to see if it would be possible, and then to, if it's possible, set up some sort of basic base on the moon so that we could have a permanent station there. So, in a sense, like the space station we have now, just not orbiting the Earth, sitting on the lunar surface. And in one of the articles, the BBC article which I read, which I put in the description, has this image, and they describe a bit about what that base, if they're going to make one, might look like and how it might function. So I put that picture here for you to look at. So, putting the mission aside, the first thing I think of when it comes to a moon base is if we could put colonies on the moon, like cities in Star Trek. And it seems relatively plausible, as generally, when there's territory, countries seem to want to grab it. Like recently, there's a whole thing with the Arctic and trying to grab it because there was oil in the Arctic, or at least they thought there was. But it turns out that there's a treaty that was actually signed, I'm not entirely sure when, between various countries saying that the moon could not be claimed, or no part of it could be claimed, for any individual country. So I looked this up and got a map from Wikipedia with some, like, what do you call these, with a key. And as you can see, the parts that aren't red essentially are the countries that took part of the deal. And one thing I find interesting about this is that, for the most part, countries that really have access to the moon haven't really signed the treaty. Like the US and most of the European and Russia are red, meaning they didn't take place. The only major sort of like countries that have done stuff with space, like India sent a probe to Mars, are India, and some of the European countries which are part of the European Union, because they're the ones organizing the mission. So I don't think that deal would actually play that much of a role, but I don't really know enough. So that's just an interesting thought. I have links about both the Arctic territorial claims and the Moon Treaty in the description. Okay, so that was the final thought. These are the links I have. The first two are the links about specifically the mission between the EU and Russia. The second is one about the Moon Treaty and the thing that the countries signed to prevent the moon being colonized by, of course, countries that can't really go to the moon for the first part anyway. And the fourth and fifth, sorry, no, just fourth, I don't have five, I'm sorry, link is an article about the colonizing, or not colonizing, but claiming of Arctic territories. And that is the end of the video. Live long and prosper.